meeting. Thank you, Felicity. Welcome to today's meeting, and I'm really pleased with the turnout, considering that it's August and this is really the busiest month of the year for those of us that are engaged in farming, support of farmers. So let's go around and do introductions. And today's warm-up question is, August is the season when fields ripen and gardens really kick off. What have you been harvesting? Or if you don't grow food yourself, what have you been seeing at the farmer's market? So if you would share your name, location, and affiliation and the answer to that question. And we will start with Felicity.
Yeah, my name is Felicity. I'm the program manager at Farms. I work remotely and live in Fargo. And the only thing I grew myself this year was herbs, and I've grown like herbs all summer. And I feel like the issue is actually just finding enough stuff to do with them. But I am happy to see, like, at farmers markets, I always really closely watch like the berry seasons, and so I had been seeing blueberries, their short little season come up, and so that's exciting for me.
How about Karen?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Karen Ahrens calling from Bismarck, and where I am a board member for the North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance and a public health and nutrition consultant. Just harvested the first cherry tomato off our volunteer cherry tomato plant from poor composting practices, but with poor composting practices, you sometimes get plants. So that was kind of exciting. And Dwayne, my husband, and I are looking forward to using produce that is grown in the area and sold at Bismarck in a cooking demo on Saturday. And we'll be using the usual suspects of cucumbers, tomatoes, onions, garlic, and as many vegetables as we can put into 45 minutes.
Wonderful. Bjorn.
Good afternoon, Bjorn Solberg. I'm in Halstead, Minnesota. I grew up on a farm just south of Fargo, so my heart's always been in North Dakota, and some of my product with my business that I own here ends up in North Dakota. So I own, it's a certified organic potato wholesale supply business. But with that, I also helped start Red River Harvest Cooperative, a group of us local producers in the Fargo-Moorhead area, where we operate an online year-round marketplace and are interested in providing other services to our local producer members. So I'm involved with that by being the director of wholesale operations. So I'm trying to establish relationships with schools and restaurants and other customers more on a wholesale level, because right now we mostly deal with retail, direct, families type structures. So yeah, I think that's all.
Excellent.
Oh, and haven't started harvesting potatoes yet. It was a late planting with it being so wet. So, but looking forward to in a couple of weeks here starting to harvest our potatoes.
Ellen, let's hear from you.
See if I can unmute myself here. Hi, everybody. Ellen Knudsen Duffy in Bismarck here. I run River Road Gardens. It's a landscape company / farm. And we haven't started harvesting pumpkins yet, a little early for that. But I have been snagging some basil from my friend's garden and eating a lot of balsamic and basil and tomatoes and mozzarella. It's my absolute favorite thing in the summer. So happy to be here today.
Delicious. Thank you, Ellen. Paul Overby. Paul, you're on mute.
There we go. I'm trying to do this on my tablet, so. Paul Overby, I'm with the Northern Plains RC&D Council. I farm in Wolford, North Dakota, and we haven't started harvesting anything yet. We should be going, but late year, so no harvest for probably another week and a half. And as far as the council goes, we got a couple of projects. I should put that in the updates. We got a couple of places we're working with people. We got a couple of people requesting assistance that we need to catch up with. And then Ann Olson and I are trying to maybe meet with somebody about the Strengthen ND incubator farm. We're trying to figure out how we can maybe get going with that.
Great. Jill Hawkinson.
Good afternoon, Jill Hawkinson. I'm a community development specialist with USDA Rural Development out of Devils Lake, and I also serve as USDA's Beginning Farmer Rancher Coordinator for the state. My garden, I have green beans right now, and I'm starting the process of finding cars that are open so I can throw my zucchini in there, because I have way more zucchini than I can ever use. But that's always the case because I love planting them and I like picking them, all different sizes, but I always overproduce those vegetables. So, and on our farm right now, we're harvesting winter wheat.
Oh, great. Shelby, I'm glad you could join us today.
Hello, I'm Shelby. I am the communications coordinator for farms. I'm in the Minot area. My grandma has actually been canning tomatoes all afternoon, so we had BLTs for lunch and they were delicious.
That's wonderful. How about Mary Podol? Are you ready?
Hi, my name is Mary Podol. Hopefully you can hear me all right. And I am the state conservationist for USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service and serve as kind of a contact liaison like Jill for rural development, but for the conservation side. And then I also represent the North Dakota Farmers Market Growers Association. So we have been harvesting cucumbers this week. We've been at market since June for foods, and we've been selling at market and to the local Bismarck Food Co-op. It's been a good summer.
Good. And let's hear from Bill Davis.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Bill Davis. I am retired, but do some local production and serve on Farms Board. And fortunately, I've been harvesting, like Jill, green beans, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, peppers, sand cherries, and some basil and some dill. So things are going well, except for the grasshoppers are taking over. So thank you.
Yeah. Excellent harvest. And Quinn, love to hear from you.
Hey everyone, Quinn Renfinch here. I'm coming to you as a producer today. I see we have representation from the Red River Harvest Cooperative and the North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association. I'm a part of both, but today I'll be a producer.
And where are you located and what are you harvesting?
Sorry, I am harvesting peas that came late this year, but there's a lot of them. And then I'm located just south of Minot, North Dakota.
Great. And I think I'm the only one left. I am Stephanie Bloomhagen, Executive Director for Farms and Board President for the Local Food Development Alliance. And I am calling in from Drake, North Dakota today, where I'm working from a house we have in Drake. Back up in Botno, my husband is harvesting a lot of green beans from our little tiny 4-foot by 7-foot raised garden bed. And I think our tomatoes are just starting to get ripe. And of course, on the farm, Mom has cucumbers coming out of her ears and green onions, and zucchini coming ripe. So good eating in August. Did I miss anyone? Okay, thank you all. Great to have you all together for our August meeting. And just as all the gardens and farms and fields are getting ripe, I think our movement is getting ripe as well. There's been a lot of great things happening, a lot of new initiatives. And so we wanted to spend this month's meeting just mostly catching up on all the good things that are happening around the state. So the agenda is mostly updates. Several of us attended a meeting with Warehouses for Good that was organized by Lori Sapu. And we wanted to share out about that. Also wanted to talk about how farmers markets are doing, how farm to school activities are going, and how marketing channels are doing. So it's really about report outs. So we'd love to hear from each of you as well on what's going on. Let's start with that sharing out about the Rural Developers Assembly meeting that Lori Sapu organized. I was there, as was Karen and Quinn, and Ellen was there. Maybe I can start, but Karen and Ellen and Quinn, feel free to add in. So as you probably know, Lori Sapu from the Rural Electric Cooperative has been working to coordinate a co-op of rural grocery stores in the northeast corner of the state. And Lori and REC have done a lot to support local foods and rural grocers for quite some time. So Lori brought in someone named John Kane, who has a nonprofit based in Houston called Warehouses for Good. And he helps community development organizations like what we do to set up warehousing space for, it could be for a local food hub. It sounds like he's worked with nonprofits that support animal rescues or supports feeding programs. I think the example he gave was a nonprofit that provided pet food and pet supplies to people in need. But he described a model where his nonprofit can supply a lot of the project management and do a lot of the grant writing to get rural development funds to set up local food warehouses. He used the term public marketplace, and he described a model based in the early 19th century when cities, some of our country's larger cities were just starting out and at about 12,000 or 14,000 in population, and where the city would fund a public marketplace, which is similar to a farmer's market in that it provides a place for those who grow food to sell it, but it's different. He made the distinction between a public market and a farmer's market. And he described a model where North Dakota could have a hub and spoke model where these public marketplaces could be someday located throughout the state so that food could more easily be distributed to rural areas. I'm going to invite Karen, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think his brainstorming that he has done to date with Lori includes the concept of a network of, say, 6 locations of these smaller warehouses, so that what we know and what we found out through the Rural Grocer Project is that the transportation is costly. And if there were more places to store food, it could help make more places for large drop shipments from larger vehicles, reducing the amount of mileage that large trucks would be spending and going to the most rural corners and the smaller loads. So this network that he proposed has 6 of these, and they'll be beginning to further study. Everyone who was at the meeting indicated some interest, and there was good representation from a good cross sector, including economic development people, farmers, the agriculture commissioner, rural electrics, of course, rural broadband, and others. And I hope that this moves forward. I know in North Dakota, we like to pilot project things, but I think that just trying out one might be a mistake, and that kind of, I think from the way it was presented, of course, need more study, and I need to study it more myself, but it seems like, you know, going big with this network of 6 places would be maybe the best way to find out and prove that this can work, rather than, you know, dipping our toes in, kind of like we are prone to do. Others, like Ellen?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting concept. And the thing that intrigued me the most about this like hub and spoke model is the ability for local producers to potentially get in at the main warehouse that's kind of the hub part, instead of trying to feed their local produce to every little grocery store or even every warehouse zone. So as a grower, that's like very intriguing to me. I think that would open up a lot of doors for local farmers to think about even expanding their crops and what they could produce or would want to produce if it was easier to get it to market all year round, instead of possibly sitting at a farmer's market for hours on end to meet a small group of people. So that was really cool. It was encouraging to see all the representation in the room, and like they were all pretty excited about it, it seemed, and had lots of good questions. And one thing they talked about was the shortage of CDL drivers in our state. I didn't really know that was such a problem, but this hub and spoke model would make it able to have smaller trucks going out from those warehouses and maybe cut back on the need for so many CDL drivers. So yeah, those are just my takeaways.
Yeah, I'll chime in here and say one thing. I think it was a really great model, and I think that this is something that they're doing in a lot of different places. So from a study standpoint, it's like Karen was saying, we should probably look at going for all of it at once instead of like a pilot project or something small. And at this point, it's putting together some type of model that would kind of lay out the whole entire thing on a macro scale. And what we really need is a dollar amount of what is it going to take from an infrastructure standpoint to actually move forward on that. And how can we come up with some type of investment that could be taken over, let's say 10 years, knowing that it'll take a while for that to get going. So I think that the information there is fantastic, and I hope that we have some further traction on it.
Could you repeat who was going to do this study?
So John Kane, the head of Warehouses for Good, who came up from Houston, said that the next step would be a transportation study to help identify where the best locations would be. I don't recall him saying specifically who would do the study, but his organization is connected with with researchers and project managers. So I'm assuming he would help us find those people to do that study.
That sounds good. So on behalf of North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association, last year, I think it was to SARE, I wrote something very similar about how big the hubs would need to be to make it profitable and economically viable. And of course, I didn't have time to really put a lot of meat on it. And so I wasn't successful, which is probably a good thing because I'm really didn't have the time this year to get started. But there's SARE grants that might work. And I don't know if you're at the point where you're looking for where the funding would come from, but I think next year, the Urban Agriculture Infrastructure USDA grant might be an opportunity. So just throwing that out there.
Absolutely. Those are great resources. I'm assuming like Karen or Ellen said, there will be follow-up meetings about this. Lori, asked for a show of interest, and there was some. So I think this will take a team of us, a lot of us writing many different grants, piecing them together to support something like this. Paul, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I had a question for those of you who were there. How many economic development staff people were there? I saw the invite and I thought this is great because that's been kind of my push in the last year, is trying to get the economic development people to see local foods as part of the whole process of encouraging local development in our region. So I'm curious, was there a good showing of EDC people, JA people, that type?
Yes, I was taking notes during the introductions. Simon from the Minot Area Chamber EDC was there. And Beaver Brinkman, the Economic Development Director for the city of Beulah. And Deb Stoker, Economic Development in Garrison. Emma, can't read my handwriting, from the North Dakota Department of Commerce. And Shannon Stoflin from RTC Networks Broadband something Western North Dakota. I'm good at taking notes, but my handwriting's atrocious. And then Carissa Swenson from the Broadband Association of North Dakota. Oh, and somebody from the South Dakota Value Added Ag Development Center was there as well. And Leonard Hibble from Rough Rider Electric Cooperative.
I guess one more interesting thing too is that these public market concepts include not only North Dakota produced foods, but foods that are produced elsewhere, so that they do increase the volume of food going through there. And there's the potential for adding other types of items, like maybe pharmaceuticals or other things, hardware. And I think we've been really good at, or pretty good at that in North Dakota in starting to combine and condense, like putting a library in a small bookstore in a grocery store. So just kind of taking up on that concept of more than one thing that the warehouses would be used for.
We kind of ended that conversation that day with a question of like, who would own and operate a system like that. And I don't think anyone had an answer for that, but it was brought up. It could be publicly funded or a public-private partnership. And I guess it was just kind of, we'll continue that conversation with whoever wants to keep working on this, and it will probably naturally happen as we keep discussing.
Mhm.
I'll just toss in as a developer of local food cooperative, it'd be fun for it to be producer operated or owned or whatever in some capacity. And this makes me all excited too, I should say, by the way, like warehouses, I mean, it being a nonprofit doing this, I mean, that's exactly what I think is the missing piece. Besides getting the food production up to the scale it needs to be.
Absolutely. I can say, looking through my notes, he had a lot of good references. He referenced a TED Talk from somebody who's the vice president of the UPS Foundation, where she describes hunger as a distribution issue. There is food, but it's not getting to the people who are hungry. And an interesting book about public markets and civic culture by Helen Tangiers, which is where he got the information about how this infrastructure at one time was provided by local governments for distribution and access for local food. And also described how those public markets led to food safety regulations and monitoring of business practices to ensure that people were safe and that the food was being sold in a fair way. At the beginning, wholesaling and buying food outside of town and then bringing it in and reselling it as your own was an illegal practice. We also touched on, the intersection of local food and food access. I believe it was Lori pointed out that when the USDA Economic Research Service, ERS, releases data about food access and food deserts, they're counting North Dakota farmers markets as food access, even though those markets are only open for maybe 3 months of the year. And even though in some small town farmers market might just be, 3 farmers, but that skews our data about food access and makes it look like there are fewer hungry people and better access in our state than there actually is.
Stephanie, with my experience in writing a healthy food finance initiative grant with the food co-op in Bismarck here, I went back and looked at that, and somehow between when Lori knew of that and the latest round of grants, that has been corrected.
Oh, good.
So that it only counts grocery stores, large box stores, supermarkets in that local food. And Lori will be making a correction to the statement that she made during that meeting.
I'm very glad to hear that, because we need accurate data to be able to get, to support our grant applications and to build initiatives. So that's wonderful to hear. So Lori is the session was recorded. Rural Developments, REC's communications manager was there with her video camera and sound equipment recording the entire session. And The slides and the recording will be available soon. And Karen also put in the chat an example of a public market in Philadelphia. Any other questions on this topic before we move forward? I would love to hear from everyone what you're observing about farmers markets this summer. How are they doing? What is there growth? Are there more customers than usual? And let's see. Mary, what markets have you been at this summer and what are you seeing?
Well, I'm with Capital Farmers Market in Bismarck at one of what I used to say is 3, but now I see that there is 4. And then there's always those trucks that park down on the Kmart lot when they have peaches and so forth. So what I've observed just from Facebook post, and Karen can probably talk more, it looks like we've got a really good showing at the Bismarck market down at the park. And then there's one at Ace on Highway 83 that seems to be doing good. I know that they have a lot of vendors on Saturday, and then they have a couple that set up on Sunday, and then they have some throughout the week. I think they're getting stronger. I do. And I think the produce part is growing. And then as part of North Dakota Farmers Market and Growers Association, we have really good activity up in Cavalier with some new vendors. And across the state, we have several markets that have applied for the mini grant. So there's activity all across the state. And I don't have a report or very good data on that. That will come later, like in October or November or January, perhaps, about where the markets were and how many members they had. My observation is still farmers are an independent lot, and like now we have people setting up at Gateway Mall just by chance. So I don't think that's true for the smaller communities. In fact, what I've noticed with smaller communities is sometimes the chamber is the one that pays the dues and sends in the names for the market, the vendors, which is really, I think, very nice of those chambers and really a good way to keep that within the community. So I just, I think Bismarck kind of is unique. I hope it's unique. Minot has several, but they don't seem to just break off and decide to have other smaller markets just because they're not happy or something. So so that's what I've observed. There's a kind of a unique characteristic in Bismarck throughout the state. Our vendors are increasing, and that's true both with kind of crafts and goods as well as produce.
Thank you, Mary. And I see that Anne has joined us. Shelby let me know that you'd be joining Anne. So I'm glad you're here. And we are reporting out on how farmers markets are doing around the state. So you're just in time, Anne. We'd love to hear what you're observing at Minot Farmers Market. And
perfect. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
yes.
Okay. We have had a very good start to market, although late for the produce. I'm sure everybody's in the same boat this year. It still has been, I feel like, a good, solid summer at market. It just feels like we're all about a month behind. And school is starting in our area in the rural schools this week. And then next week, Minot Public starts the end of the week. So we always see a little drop in customers that first week of school, and then our weekday markets trickle off into September, and we go until the end of October at Minot Farmers Market, weather permitting. So we have hired, some of you know this, that we have hired a marketer this year. We were fortunate to have a big sponsorship last year, kind of drop in our laps. And we took the opportunity to hire someone with actual marketing experience. And it has been a really great experience for us. And she has done a lot of legwork and built us a website. And we have tried some different marketing strategies. And I think that it is paying off. And mostly she's going to start hitting the marketing and the advertising dollars. I have kind of been waiting to spend those now as we're getting into higher produce time, and sweet corn is coming. The melons are coming for the first time tonight, so that's going to be a big draw. But really to see what can we do to keep people coming into the market going into fall. And so in the Minot area in the past, it seems like school starts, people get busy with that and sports and fall things, and they kind of forget about market. So what can we do this year to keep that going? We also hired a market manager who was our farms intern last year. So huge shout out to farms. We've had such good experiences with our interns, and it's been so nice to have a market manager who's not also a vendor. A lot of us have taken our rotations through that, but it is hard to do a really good job with 40 some vendors and to keep that organized because of our parking lot, and people have trailers, and now that we have the great meat vendors, they need plugins. So keeping all that straight and keeping it organized has been really, really nice to have her doing that. So I'm really hopeful we can continue with that. They're looking at different ways to fundraise so that that position can have some more money for next year. So yeah, I think it's been good. We could use some more produce at market, but it is coming. So, and we had a great experience with egg in the classroom. Farms is there, egg department, and a live remote. That was a really successful day for our vendors.
I
And
can,
we're also, oh, go ahead.
no, finish what you were saying.
The one thing else we're trying new this year is typically we shut off membership July, well, whenever we start market, so the first or second week in July, because we just don't have the capability in the past to manage those extra vendors, and we only have 40 parking spaces. And now we're doing a try it out day because it's very rare, if never, that we have every vendor here. So we have the opportunity for others to try it out. Maybe they missed the deadline, maybe they just are new, maybe they are coming from out of town, and they can try our market for $5 for that day. They're talking about maybe increasing that because it has been really popular. And so that has been good also for the market.
I think that's really fantastic, and I'm sure that's going to help us grow the number of producers and market vendors, which is what we've been aiming to do for, all along. We still have our Farmers Market Success Strategies webinar on the farm's webpage. So if there'd be a way, I don't know, a little card, or just you could just share it with them. When you have somebody try it out, happy to share that webinar with them too.
That's a great idea.
I got to have a farms table at Biz Market this past Saturday and Minot Farmers Market the week prior for Ag in the Classroom Day at each respective market. And it was a great time, and I was really impressed by the number of customers, the number of just the amount of engagement, and it seemed like people were there to shop. And this isn't hard data, this is just what it looked like to me. It looked like people were making more purchases than in the past. So I really hope that's true. Farms had coloring sheets, color your own stickers, and a farmer's market bingo game for kids. And that was well received, and really appreciated all the work Ann Olson put into the Ag in the Classroom Day in Minot. It was a great day. Really impressed by the work that that Stephanie Sandstrom, your marketer, has been doing as well. And then Bismarck was a great day as well. That was in conjunction with their annual kids market. And so kids, that's the day when kids get to set up booths and sell things. And I was really impressed by the quality of things that kids were making and selling. It seems like each year that I see pictures from Kids Day, the kids are just better and better. So I got a great little shoulder bag made from recycled coffee bean bags made by a young seamstress. And so just really, really pleased to see the energy at our farmers markets. Let's see.
Just throw in there as a former board member for the Biz Market. I think that this past Saturday was the largest market that Bismarck has ever had, I think, in the number of vendors who were present, between the regular vendors, a few new ones, and some children's booths. So very heartening to see the growth in that, and the count in the first hour of people was 400 who were there during the first hour of market. So we're really happy to see that growth and energy, like you said, Stephanie.
Excellent. Yeah. Any reports from any other markets in the state?
I haven't, I have another part-time job of emceeing, DJing weddings. So I haven't made it to the Red River Market or any of the other Fargo-Moorhead markets here, but from pictures and everything, they're busy, but couldn't tell you any solid facts. And then I don't see our financials. I don't know if Quinn, you want to mention how we're doing as a Red River Harvest? I'm not. I do deliveries, and I can say it seems like we're doing good and pretty on par with what we did last year, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're still alive. I can say that. We're still in it.
Okay.
No, we managed to stay open through our first winter, which is our biggest hurdle, and one of the things we wanted to prove we could do with an online marketplace and having such a drop in production from produce. So we proved that we could do that, and now we're just kind of figuring out what that looks like, bringing in more producers and developing that relationship with an online presence versus that community front that you get in an actual farmer's market.
Mm-hmm. And Bjorn, you said you were working on wholesale accounts for the cooperative. Did you want to share any more about that?
So it's slow and steady. I think as the common theme, kind of a chicken egg, and so there's not much production to reach that level yet, and so I want to be careful and not being like, hey, buy through us, and then we don't really have anything available to them, and vice versa. So still trying to gauge what is going to be, just since the harvest is a little bit behind. Producers now are just kind of finding out what they might have excess of or whatever in the market. So yeah, haven't developed any solid relationship yet, but the one thing that I did want to bring up to you guys that's related, and kind of my thought is to get production up to a higher scale, is to have a customer that is the least picky and in the most need. And to me, that's the food bank. So I've had 2 conversations with Kate, from the COO from Great Plains Food Bank, because their donations have dropped. They're having to buy more produce instead of getting it from donations, and the need is growing. And so, they've got funding to buy produce, but the biggest hurdle is that it's still a lot cheaper for them to get it elsewhere. And when they're in such a bad need, it's hard for them to divert a lot of that funds towards local produce, because I also want to make sure that producers are getting fairly compensated. And so that's kind of a hurdle that we're at right now. And so I would like to create a special fund that's used to purchase local foods that's then donated to local food shelves or the food bank. And there's a similar program out of the Twin Cities called the LEAF, L-E-A-F-F. And there's a partnership between a food hub and the food bank there, Second Harvest Heartland. And they're purchasing hundreds of thousands of dollars. They've got, I think, like a $3 million commitment over the next few years to purchase local food from that food hub there in near the cities, the Good Acre it's called. And so I'd like to see a similar fund and relationship like that established between the food bank and I mean, you know, us, since we're a group of local producers, but then it could be scaled up to statewide easily. And so want to throw that out there because, you know, Giving Hearts Day, I know applications just passed and I was, you know, wanting to be involved with that, but the food bank can't. They're already struggling enough to get as much money, and so they don't want to have like another thing for people to donate towards and take money away from. So it's not going to happen this year for Giving Hearts Day, but it'd be nice to get some state funding and something towards something like that. Because like I said, the food bank's an ideal customer when you're new to farming or trying to scale up your farming. They're the least picky. You can sell them number 1 and number 2 quality. Or just number 2 if you can find number 1 quality, you know, customer for that quality, like a restaurant or something. So anyway, that's kind of what's been burning in I'm passionate about farm to school, but over the last couple of months, I've been becoming more and more passionate about like a farm to food bank or food shelf type structure to really get production up, scaled up.
And perhaps that'd be an opportunity for a collaboration with North Dakota Local Food Development Alliance. Maybe, I recall, Mary, maybe, I'm hoping you remember this too. In 2016, right before this organization formed, Great Plains Food Bank and NRCS and several other entities were having these farm at the intersection of food and farming. It was about 2 years that we met, and we divided into 3 subgroups, and each group tackled a few issues with brainstorming. I was in the same group as Mary, and I know our group created a white paper about visioning a farm to food shelf project. Derek Lowstutter was in our group and he wrote that white paper. That was a few years ago now, but I think the report from that whole project is still, I have it. I'd be happy to share it, but maybe there'd be some interest in returning to that work and collaborating with you guys.
Yeah, and I would say go to the Good Acre, and then under their programs, the LEAF Fund, L-E-A-F-F, and then David is the one that heads up the program for them at the Good Acre. And the Good Acre is the food hub, basically, in this. And he's more than happy to talk about how they've structured it and thought it through and everything like that. But essentially, if you have $100,000 in a fund, you could say 20 families are going to, 20 different producers are going to get $5,000 paid out to them for donating it to the food bank. And then they have a certain price point. So potatoes will be bought at $1 a pound or whatever. So bring in a 50-pound box and then you'll get $50 for that up to, and you keep doing that up until you get your $5,000. That's how they structure it. And I think it's a pretty good guarantee to the farmer that what you plant, you're going to get $5,000 worth out of, but the pricing is set. I don't want to make it seem like, anyway. So I highly recommend, and that's what I'm kind of trying to focus on a little bit here. But like I said, slight roadblock in kind of the main partner not being able to supply the funding or be able to help advertise as much for it as I was hoping for.
Stephanie, to answer your question, NRCS put that plan together, all those documents of the, so it is a good document to pull off the shelf as a way to use to get grants or to identify some of the things that were identified that were gaps. And I do know that it was important to the group that we identify ways for the economic value of our produce. It's great to donate, and we have several that do, but it's also important that that becomes, you can't just depend on your market gardeners to provide fresh produce on behalf of their big heart. It's important that we create job satisfaction and economic viability. So I will see if I can find that. I think it's on your website as well. And if I have any of those documents that we created from that, I will see if I can locate those as well.
I put a link to it in our in the history that I created for our strategic planning session. So I will, here we go, copy. I'll put it in the chat. So while we're talking about other sources of distribution, you know, last month we heard about Farm to School and the grant that the BizMan Co-op got. Are there any other updates? Are there any other Farm to School activities happening around the state?
I know in Bismarck, we're trying to develop a more strategic plan for Farm to School within like the conservation district and the local foods coordinator who's leaving us. I don't know if you all knew that Claire Lostuder and Derek are moving to Colorado to follow a career choice that Derek has made. And so I will miss her greatly for many reasons, but particularly local foods. But that's what we're working on. And before I turn this over, I do have to leave in a few minutes, but I wanted to make sure that you all were aware that on August 27th, it's a Saturday from 8 to 12, the Capitol Farmers Market and Tractor Supply is going to be the site of USDA and the North Dakota Department of Agriculture local food celebration in conjunction with La Tomatina, which is an international tomato throwing day. I can't promise that we're gonna have tomatoes to throw, but we will celebrate, USDA will be celebrating local foods, and Commissioner has agreed to be there, as well as my counterparts with Rural Development and Farm Service Agency and possibly ARS. So be sure if you're anywhere around that you check us out for tomato throwing. It was fun a couple years ago being able to throw tomatoes at the Commissioner. And if you are a vendor of any kind, it's a free day. We're looking for vendors, booths, anybody that wants to come just celebrate local foods in any fashion. Anybody know any food trucks that don't have other commitments? We'd love to have food trucks sitting out there, but come join us and throw a tomato at the Commissioner or at my counterpart, at not me.
What was the date again on that? I'm sorry, Mary.
August 27th.
7th, okay. And that's Bismarck?
Yes. And I do have to clock out of here and go to another meeting. Thank you, Stephanie, and to everybody for what you do.
Thank you so much, Mary, and thanks for that report out. That's sure to be a fun day. So I did have on the agenda a discussion of an in-person meeting. So part of that was driven by the need to spend out our Consensus Council grant, but I've had conversations with Anne at the Consensus Council, and I think we've worked out some other ways to spend out that grant by September 30th. So that's not to say we don't have we won't have an in-person meeting, just that we don't have to have it in September, which gives us a little more time to plan and make sure that that we get a lot out of our time together. So maybe I will just via email send out a call for suggestions of how you'd like to spend an in-person meeting. And for now, I would just ask if there are any other updates, anything anyone would like to share.
I guess I'll just quickly add, I'm not sure if we've mentioned this to you guys, but as Red River Harvest Cooperative, we are part of a grant program in Minnesota. So we're linked with other kind of mobile food farmers markets. Some act as like actual farmers markets, but then also have an online presence, and we're just the online presence. But we're networked with them, and they've got that grant program that they've been kind of exploring how to make a food hub work, at least in their communities. And I think a lot of the information and resources could be translated over to the North Dakota side. So it's a 3-year program we're involved with. We're just getting done with year 1 here at the end of September. So we get some grant funding, but then also access to that network and then some other resources. And they've got a website. So I think it would be good because my kind of vision is to have other hubs, and we talked about a hub and spokes pop up around the state of North Dakota. And so I think instead of having to pilot and start from scratch, taking a lot of this information from Minnesota side. So whoever you think I should send like the lead, people, they would be more than willing to talk with, North Dakota counterpart to help kind of share the information and whatnot. I can help get you connected to that. And then also anytime throughout the course, I could be a good resource too. I sit in on the meetings along with someone else from Red River Harvest. So we have weekly meetings.
Bjorn, that would be excellent. I put ndlocalfood@gmail.com in the chat. Felicity and I manage that inbox, but you could also email me or Felicity, and we can make sure that the information is distributed to the rest of the group. And that might be a great monthly meeting topic to have them speak.
You bet. Renewing the Countryside is the nonprofit that's kind of overseeing the grant program. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with them. I don't know if they have a presence in North Dakota or not, but yeah, perfect. I'll send contact information to that Gmail account then.
That would be great. I also, Farms has a grant from the USDA Ag Marketing Service Farmers Market Promotion Program. And in addition to giving grant funding, those program officers coordinate monthly meetings of their grantees to just updates and share information and kind of just create a network. And in addition to those monthly meetings, they've been having topic-focused meetings about online sales platforms for local food. And I think from Minnesota, the Arrow, in Western Minnesota, it's an economic development organization, or Arrowhead Economic Development is a participant, but there might be some connections there as well. And that Farmers Market Promotion Program or Local Food Promotion Program might be a good funding source for online, food hubs with an online platform component. Well, it is 3 o'clock. I encourage you to check out our website with our member updates for just to stay in the loop with what's happening all month, not just when we're meeting. And if you have updates, I encourage you to share those on our member updates page, ndlocalfood.com. And thanks so much for joining us today. It was a great conversation. I look forward to seeing you all next month.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you.